guys, today we are reviewing the new movie Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. We actually got to see this at an early screening this week. We managed to snag some tickets and get into it, and we're excited to talk about our thoughts.
Going into this movie, we were pretty excited. We had a lot of high hopes, especially because The Fifth Element is one of our favorite movies. We love that movie a lot. So we were hoping that this movie was a lot better than Lucy, and it landed somewhere in between.
It's entertaining. I think it's worth watching, and if you do go see it in theaters, I recommend seeing it in 3D because some of the 3D scenes are very worth it to have that experience.
And one of the biggest highlights of the film were the visual effects. It was a very pretty movie. Not
only was it really pretty to look at, the CGI was also pretty seamless in my opinion. Like, I think it was pretty good. There were no scenes that took me out of it being like, oh, that doesn't look right or anything like that. So you can definitely tell that they spent a lot of time and effort with that immersive sci-fi alien world vibe.
And I really felt like the world building was another one of the strongest parts of this movie. Is all the different areas and aliens were very cool.
Yeah, and the trick with movies like this, because this is very Star Wars-esque, which, for those of you that don't know, Valerian actually came before Star Wars. The comics came before Star Wars, and Star Wars got a lot of its inspiration from Valerian. So it's understandable that they have a lot of similarities, but when you have movies or TV shows where there's a lot of different species involved and a lot of different worlds, you got to find that balance between explaining things and leaving things unexplained. And I think this struck a good balance with those.
I think so too.
Something I did not find very strong about this movie was the characters, especially the main characters and even the villain. They were very one-dimensional in my opinion. I thought that throughout the movie there were a few points where they could have been developed a little bit more and they could have gotten more aspects to their characters that would have made them more, in-depth and interesting, and they just pretty much stayed with like their one or two characteristics that define them the entire time.
Yeah, I think when you first encounter most of the characters, you go, wow, those are some strong characters and they definitely have personality. But when they don't change for most of the movie, then you start to go, oh, well, if that's all they are, really, there's not much depth to them. And because the characters were so one-dimensional, the plot is almost a little bit one-dimensional as well. As you go through, there were several moments where in the theater we were talking back and forth trying to go, oh, could this be a twist? Could this be a twist? And none of those happened. It was a very straightforward story.
It was pretty predictable in my opinion, and there were no twists and turns that made it interesting. I think the only really interesting thing about this film was the visuals and the background alien species and environments.
That being said, there were some parts of the plot that were pretty interesting and some alien races, and there were some twists and turns, but I think it was a little bit too predictable for us.
Honestly, the main thing that bothered me throughout the majority of this movie and kept pulling me out of being really immersed in it was the romance plot. I don't necessarily think that's spoilery because it is shown in the trailers, but they spend the entirety of this movie focusing on the romance. I don't think there was a single scene or group of scenes in one section that didn't focus on, the characters chasing after each other.
Yeah, I think they definitely push that angle throughout the movie to the movie's detriment at certain points.
And not only that, but I honestly didn't think the main characters, like the actors, Dane DeHaan and Cara Delevingne, I don't think they had a lot of on-screen romance chemistry. I think they worked really well as partners and really good friends, but romance-wise, it just felt really flat, and by the time you got to the end and kind of how they ended it with them, I don't think made sense based on everything you saw throughout the movie, so it bothered me a lot. There were a few big-name actors in this movie that made, some cameos that moved the plot forward, and those were pretty interesting.
Yeah, several of these actors were actually pretty well hidden in the movie. You had to listen to them for a second before you realized who they were, and we were actually pretty pleasantly surprised with Rihanna's performance. She was actually pretty entertaining and didn't feel like she was just shoehorned into the movie to have Rihanna in your movie.
She was in it a lot more than I originally thought she was going to be based on the trailers, and I actually really enjoyed her little mini story arc that she had. I think that was one of the few parts of the movie that added some depth to it, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, do we think that you should see this movie in theaters? I think that if you are a lover of sci-fi and movies like this, I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll have fun watching it. Critically, I don't think it's the best, but it's fun to watch.
I agree. Upon finishing the movie, we were both like, oh, that was a good movie. I enjoyed it. And then the longer we thought about it, we found more and more flaws about what we thought about the actual movie critically, but it was definitely a fun watch.
I think that if this movie had come out, 5 or 10 years ago, I think it would have been maybe better in my opinion, but I think that we've had so many high quality sci-fi movies come out over the past few years that I have a lot higher expectations for them beyond just the side stories or the visuals. I have a lot higher expectations for just the plot and the characters in general.
That's it for this review, guys. Let us know down in the comment section below if you've seen Valerian, what you thought about it, if you liked it, if you hated it, or if you haven't seen it. Are you excited for it? Despite what we thought about it, maybe you'll like it. As always, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of different videos, and if you want to check some of those out, they'll be right over there for you guys.
And we will see you in our next video. Bye!